Alright, so for today's video, we're going to be jumping forward quite a bit. If you haven't watched my last two previous videos, stop right now and go watch them immediately. They are absolutely essential as being background for what this story builds on. Okay, so in this timeline, I am living about a couple of years or so in the future. I'm making an attempt to better myself through tertiary education in the next region over, though we all know how that goes, don't we? And my landlady, she is very lovely to me. She is full-blooded Maori and working hard to connect with her roots that were, you know, brutally ripped from Tangata Whenua during the 1950s, because at least we forget about the white invaders who came and brutalised and abused an entire race into being afraid to relate to the very skin they were born into. So my landlady's doing her best. She's attending her Maori language learning classes. She's going off to her maraes and her meetups. There was an official title for it, I forget what they were, but you go off to the marae to live for several days and you'd be like fully immersing yourself in the culture and be as a community. It sounded great, good on her. And one day she comes back, eyes shining, head in the clouds, and hands me a bag. Apparently, while they were there was this big tree absolutely chock full of tuis, and they were singing away, and apparently it was this great magical experience, and then a car had driven past and had startled the tuis, and apparently one of the tuis had flown out and gotten hit by the car. And this tui was in a bag, dead. It had just been freshly killed just this morning. It was a shame, really. It was such a beautiful bird. There was still warmth clinging to its skin, and it hadn't yet gone stiff. My landlady was wondering if I might be interested in plucking it. She had taken the body home because she had thought the feathers might be good for making one of their traditional Maori feather cloaks, but the girl she was fostering had pretty much no interest in actually doing anything about it, so the offer was turned to me. Never mind me being as white as a moonlit pearl of mayonnaise. So yeah, my landlady went out again. I was home alone plucking this dead bird. It was more than a little hard to pull the feathers out of the skin. It was still yielding enough to follow your hand as you pulled. I had to sit there and Google how to pluck a dead bird correctly, because just like the mouse, I hadn't done this before either. So I was sitting there plucking this bird, and by the time I had done, it looked so sad, with all its bare little body laying there naked without any feathers. Tuis aren't built to be featherless. I actually felt quite bad for it, really. Tuis are a beautiful creature, and it seemed like a waste to just lead it to succumb to the stiffness and go all cold and rot. So, what did I do? Well, I hopped online and I pulled up Google again. And unfortunately, like the mouse, but to a considerably more extreme scale, there was actually no online resources about tuis whatsoever. Like, literally none. And I don't condone this at all. I don't recommend going out and hunting down New Zealand native birds to do what I've done, but I had to change my Google search terms from tui to chicken, just to figure out how to prepare it. I'll spare you the gory details, of course, but my intention was to honour the bird, and to use up every part of it, and not just leave such a beautiful creature to lie around and go to waste. The feathers had already been put aside for the feather cloak. I took the head, the feet and the bones out, and buried them in the garden, underneath a plant that looked like it needed the extra nutrients. The internal organs I offered to the house's cats. They really did not seem interested at all in being anywhere near such a nutrient-rich source of vitamins, but I didn't properly know how to cook and prepare internal organs, so they too went to be buried as well. The main meat, though, I took what I could, which was hardly any at all, though. The tui is such a lean bird, it had only scraps and slithers of edible meat, so I had to chop it up fine and cook it in an omelette. It was very strong, though. For the little amount of meat there was, I was surprised at how much it affected the taste of the omelette. I didn't eat it all by itself, though. If it's one thing poverty has taught me, it is well and truly how to pad out a meal. So I had quite a bit of omelette here, and it was far too much for me to eat alone, so I rang up a friend and asked them how much they trusted me. They did not trust me at all. In fact, they refused to come over and eat anything I made unless I'd tell them what it was beforehand, which I was definitely not doing, so I hung up on them and called someone else. They were a bit toxic in the end anyway, they're not in my life anymore for good reason. And the person I did invite over, they were very open-minded. They kept trying to guess the whole time what it was, and they couldn't put a name to it until I'd told them at the end. It was definitely a very heavy meat. It tasted very gamey, and not what you'd think a bird would taste like at all. And again, I do not condone doing this to any such animal at all. We do not go out and kill animals that are not already dead. We make use of what we have, and we use up every part of it. For legal reasons, I'm actually going to have to say that none of this was intentioned to be true. I'm going to have to say this was all a made-up story, because I don't want some official scary busybody person coming down and clapping me in handcuffs to cart me off to jail. So yeah, I don't go by my legal birth name at the cafe I was working at anymore. The set of chefs I was working with at the time, yeah, they all called me Tilly. And even one friggin' smart-ass demi-chef food prep guy, he liked to friggin' sneak up behind my back, making chicken noises, then letting out the most horrific behind my back before scuttling off into quite probably was the hellish depths from which he came. He was not quite as funny as he thought he was, and apparently his blood-cursed wretches were his impression of me, creeping along in the night and snatching sleeping Tillies out of trees. So, yes. This here ends my trilogy of what was probably traumatised quite a few of you, and definitely don't let any of your spare co-workers find out what sort of blood rituals and nature rites you like getting up to in your spare time, because you will end up paying for it later. Especially if you work in hospo, where most of them are nut jobs already. I'm looking at you, Manpreet and Kylie.